Hello and welcome to the Kopala TV main news. We get straight into the headlines. People with disabilities feel neglected during the COVID-19. CBU lecturers pledge not to go back to work. Government sets 8 billion kwacha COVID-19 bonus towards economic stimulus. And Malawi set for landmark presidential return. Join us in a bit after this. To present the Kopala TV main news, my name is Monze Mwenga. The Zambia Deaf Youth and Women says people with disabilities have been neglected 120% because no initiative has been put in place to help persons with disabilities benefit. Zambia Deaf Youth and Women Executive Director Dr. Frankson Musukwa told Kopala TV in an interview that the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU has been distributing mealie meal and they have not received any. Mr. Musukwa says their businesses have also gone down. However, it took the Zambia Deaf Youth and Women efforts to mobilize 2,000 transparent shields that were distributed to the hearing impaired schools across the country.
Yes, we have been neglected 120%. No initiative has been put in place to help persons with disabilities. We have heard of relief support, but how much will persons with disabilities benefit? DMMU has been distributing mealie meal. We have been forgotten. Our businesses are down and hope for stimulus package to rescue us. Look at schools. They reopened examination classes without thought of the deaf child and a teacher. Who can't benefit from cloth-made face masks? Because our children are unique, who depend on facial expression and lip reading. It has to take Zambia Deaf Youth and Women effort.
The Copperbelt University CBU lecturers have pledged not to go back to work because government still owes them their April and May salaries. More details given in the following report.
The second highest institution of learning in the country, Copperbelt University CBU, reopened yesterday. Christabel Malama is CBU's public relations officer, and she explained what measures have been put in place at the institution.
Among the measures that have been put in place include having people's temperature taken at the university gate entrance, masking up at all times while on campus, sanitizing before entering the university premises, and we have also placed the hand washing facilities in different locations to ensure that our students have access to those as they enter their hostels, as they go to classrooms, as well as they access the administration building.
Kopala TV also spoke to some of the graduating students at the university, and they had this to say.
We'd like to commend government for giving priority first to the final year students because we're just a few months away from completing. So it's a welcome move, and also the measures that have been put in place, 2 people per room, it will help to combat the spread of COVID-19. And also since we're only a few number, it will be indeed a manageable number.
We were at home for a while and we need to progress. I think the decision to reopen the institution has been welcomed by many. As you've seen, so many people have come on the first day because we're eager to continue learning.
As Kobusu, we are very glad that the school is open due to the fact that students have been experiencing a lot of issues when it comes to e-learning, and especially final year students because they have projects and the like.
It's commendable by the government, and we are generally happy for the fact that we've been considered as final year students.
Others said that learning in the new normal will be difficult.
These restrictions, I don't think they'll be kind of okay with me because there are a lot of restrictions that we're going to abide with. And just the environment itself, I think it will be hard to just adapt since we're trying to finish up with everything.
I feel like the regulations are going to be difficult, like learning in class with masks, how we hear lecturers if they have to wear masks and everything.
Despite putting in place all the COVID-19 guidelines as well as presidential directives, it seems that the lecturers won't go back to work. Copperbelt University Academics Union President and spokesperson of the stakeholders, Dr. Delikin Talasha, had this to say.
Be available until CBU pays its salaries. Why? Because the amount that we get, the salary that we get, has the component of transport allowance. And that transport allowance helps you to be able to move from one place to another. What lecturers that are coming from Douala, from Mofrera, from Luansha, from the whole lot of Copperbelt, they come and work here. How do they expect people to come and work there when they have not been paid?
One of the challenges being faced at the institution is poor funding. The workers are wondering how the government expects them to be productive and put in their best on empty stomachs. The question now is, how long will this go on, and how are the graduating students expected to graduate without learning? Diana Kafwala, Kopala TV News, in Kitwe.
Government says it plans to issue 8 billion kwacha COVID-19 bond, and its allocation will go towards the needy areas, including payment to retirees, contractors, and suppliers. This was said yesterday in a cabinet meeting held at Mulungushi International Conference Center. According to a statement availed to Kopala TV, the cabinet also discussed the issue of the food security situation in the nation and the actions required to ensure that the food security situation is guaranteed. The Food Reserve Agency, FRA, is expected to buy 1 million metric tons of white maize for National Strategic Food Reserve as directed by His Excellency the President. In case you are just joining us, you are watching the Kopala TV main news. Join us in a bit after this.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena mumwesu Kopala. Kopala TV.
My number ishusho limentindeaza yama oji orushani Kopala TV yama oji imuntu wandi Yesu fwebene by fwebene naidede kalasti yako Kopala futi yaba Kopala manje kuikatashani yoina naena ya kuntambo oroni jiviji wala iwe ile sango top star decoder channel 98 paku ninshi yatubela puta mensa ninshi yalila ni efidimbwe kule izimuli la femunjazi so yuri landati Kopala TV tayawanga ya boiling channel wako batu wachila tamba fe wino kwangwa filamba fyambo kupona uruwa mfotoro bantu ifuma chane wefingi fyamo pura fi alula iwe Kopala TV ni Kopala futi eile kuchalo no ushali mokuba molasti elo ile sansa Kopala yonse my number ukwambila pepa my number pandola Luansha kito paketi ke mufurila mufuken chingola pa chingo begi na chidila iwe ni Kopala TV eiliko muntu wanja pakushongora pfeka top star wetata nde tambera pofi Kopala TV pachani 98 apa kude konkana ne charo bumper to bamba ni pate after pate wo pate after pate wo Kopala TV OG Kopala TV, available on Topstar Channel 98. Kopala TV, entertainment just for you.
Looking for an opportunity to grow your business? Well, Kopala TV has good news for all small-scale businesses. You can now advertise on Kopala TV's Makwebo. Bonseba na mayo na bashtata. Iseni mulangishe amakwebo yenu pamutengo uachepa nga 100 kwacha. Yes, you heard right. For as low as 100 kwacha, your business will get its peak. Whatever the business, we will advertise. All you need to do is send a text of what your business offers, indicating the name, location, and contact details to the number below. Payment for the advertising spot can be made through MTN mobile money on the number down below. Makwebo, Make your business known.
One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia chalo chesu. Stop political violence.
I am Zambian. I am against political violence.
I am Zambian, and I say disarm all cadres now.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
It's not good killing one another as Zambians. Stop the violence.
Let's keep the peace in our streets. Let's work to stay one Zambia.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
Ndimwina Zambia, lekeni ukulwa pamulandu wa politics. Welcome back. Political parties have rejected the proposed nomination fees by the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ. In a meeting under the support of the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, ZCID, in Lusaka yesterday, the political parties have rejected the nomination fees, saying leadership cannot be for the rich, but anyone with wisdom and leadership qualities. Details are given in the following report.
With only a few months left before the 2021 general pause, talks have continued among political parties on the proposed and increased nomination fees by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. This was after ECZ announced the proposed nomination fees last week. According to the fees made available to the media, male presidential candidates will be required to pay 150,000 kwacha from 60,000 kwacha, while female presidential candidates and persons with disabilities will pay 120,000 kwacha from 60,000 kwacha. However, this has come with mixed reactions. The political parties had this to say.
And us as NDC, our submission is that we don't want them, and the best way is to have, at the very least, the nomination fees that we had in 2016, because they are not going to attract the right leadership in this country. Leadership is not for the rich. Leadership is for the people that have the passion, the people that have maybe the experience, the know-how, whatever it is, and the youth who is full of vibrancy and integrity and everything, but has no money behind him. How do you expect him to pay the same amount that you, who is empowered, is paying?
At ECZ, they must be magnanimous enough to tell us how they came to 150. They should also know that they are dealing with minds that are learned. We are not minds that they can just flash numbers and figures and we are going to
Then ECZ should also be reminded that they exist because of the Zambian people and because of the democracy that is existing in Zambia. They should not be dictators. They should be listening to what the people of Zambia are saying through their leaders who are gathered here.
We have to start all over again on the issue of nomination fees because they are on the wrong premise right from the beginning. So don't even consider anything they've done in the past. Start afresh.
Meanwhile, ZCID board chairperson Jackson Silabwe affirmed the rejection of the fees by the members and confirmed communicating to the ECZ on the proposed nomination fees by the political parties who are in attendance of the meeting.
And we should not eliticize elections where only a few well-to-do people can manage to pay the nomination fees. In fact, as Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue political parties, we have further proposed that the nomination fee, like in any other countries, should be refundable. We, the political parties, we have rejected the proposed nomination fees by the ECZ.
ZCID board chairperson say having such figures will not attract the right leadership, but only the financially sound. Victoria Mkpo reporting in Kitwe.
The United Party for National Development, UPND, says the ruling Patriotic Front is shedding crocodile tears over the proposed nomination fees, and the UPND has, however, cautioned the Zambian people to be very alert with whatever comes from ECZ and the PF concerning the 2021 elections. In a statement made available to Kopala TV, the UPND says the issue of the nomination fees has put both ECZ and PF on the spot. UPND Mines and Freedom Fighter chairperson Percy Chanda says the rejection of ECZ nomination fees by the PF is meant to hoodwink Zambians, that even the PF is not happy, and yet the ruling Patriotic Front could be the mastermind behind these outrageous nomination fees in order to rig the elections.
Zambians must be very alert and cautious with whatever comes out from ECZ concerning 2021 elections. The issue of nomination fees has just put both ECZ and PF on the spot. The rejection of ECZ nomination fees by PF is meant to hoodwink Zambians, that even PF is not happy. Yet PF could be the mastermind behind these outrageous nomination fees in order to rig the elections. PF is just shedding crocodile tears over the issue they know too well. If PF is genuinely concerned about the effects of the new nomination fees, by now you could have seen demonstrations against ECZ throughout the country, as the case is on Bill 10. ECZ is merely carrying out instructions from the PF rigging machinery.
Mr. Chanda says the idea behind these outrageous nominations is to make it practically impossible for other political parties to field candidates throughout the country. The Zambia DNA says it is abundantly clear that those opposing to Bill 10 are driven by selfish interest and do not mean well for the country. Zambia DNA spokesperson Scoopy Mulemwa told Kopala TV that if the bill is to be enacted into law, this will help address many critical issues and improve the welfare of the Zambian people.
It's now abundantly clear that those opposed to Bill 10 are not only unpatriotic, but have also exposed their selfish interests and do not mean well for the country. It's obvious that Bill 10, once enacted into law, will help address many critical issues and improve the welfare of the Zambian people. For example, traditional leadership wrangles inherent in most of the chiefdoms will be adequately addressed, thus help spur the much-needed development in the said areas. It will also empower the youth, women, and disabled people via proportional representation in Parliament. Currently, the said groups do not have representation in Parliament, a situation which has robbed them of a voice in the lawmaking body. However, we are surprised that the UPND and their surrogates are vehemently opposing such a progressive bill meant to improve the Zambian people's welfare. We expect all MPs to debate the bill in Parliament and not walk out, as they represent interests of their electorates.
More in local news. The Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority, ZAMRA, said that a Chipata businessman has been arrested for operating a pharmacy with a certificate of registration contrary to Section 14, Cap 1 of the Medicines and Allied Substances Act No. 3 of 2013. This is in addition to being in possession of government medicine suspected to have been unlawfully obtained contrary to Section 319 of the Penal Code, Chapter 87 of the Laws of Zambia. In a statement availed to Kopala TV, ZAMRA said the authority wishes to issue stern warning to all those engaging in such vices to refrain from doing so or risk being prosecuted. In case you have just joined us, you are watching the Kopala TV main news. Join us in a bit after the set of commercials.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena buena mumwesu Kopala. Kopala TV.
Welcome back. And now in foreign news. Malawi goes to polls Tuesday in a landmark presidential return after last year's elections were marred by allegations of rigging. The results were overturned by the Constitutional Court, which ordered a fresh vote. We monitored Al Jazeera for more on this report.
Malawi's main opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera, who formed an alliance with Vice President Saulos Chilima, says he's going to win Tuesday's presidential rerun. He lost to President Peter Mutharika by 159,000 votes in last year's election, which the Constitutional Court ruled was marred by widespread ballot rigging. Judges ordered a rerun.
You know, a lot of young people, and that's the majority of Malawians, do not have any jobs, and we are telling them that we will create jobs, we will have industry, and we will have a national youth service that will get every young person involved in something that will build this country.
President Mutharika tried to stop the rerun, but the Supreme Court turned down his appeal. When he then tried to force the top judge into early retirement, opposition groups accused Mutharika of trying to intimidate the judiciary. The president denies the allegation. It's only the second time a presidential election result in Africa has been overturned. Political analysts say credibility in Malawi is crucial.
The constitutional framework is there. An independent judiciary is there. I mean, we are here because of an independent judiciary putting its foot down in demanding that the elections must be held according to law, and we have managed to get here. So it's not perfect because there are still a number of significant gaps, but I think it's conducive.
There are also logistical concerns. For months, opposition groups demanded the removal of the organizers of last year's disputed election. The Electoral Commission now has a new man in charge who's under pressure to make sure voting and counting of ballot papers goes smoothly this time.
Well, the first challenge, of course, was the issue of time. We were sworn in on the 9th of June, and the same day Parliament resolved that the date of election should be the 23rd of June. We made a decision to gazette that date, which meant that we had less than 2 weeks in order to prepare for these elections.
The coronavirus pandemic has restricted travel for international election observers. Organizers are trying to keep voters safe by encouraging social distancing, mask wearing and hand washing, all of which hasn't been widely seen during campaigning. Harun Mutasa, Al Jazeera.
As the lockdown eases, social distancing rules designed to keep everyone safe are having a significant impact on millions of lives. But for many deaf and blind people, the distancing rules and wearing of face masks has made the world almost impossible to navigate. Many deaf and blind people feel they've been forgotten during the pandemic and fear the virus will continue to affect their lives far into the future. We monitored the BBC for more on this story.
I think I would describe it as feeling pretty helpless. I'm just cut off, disconnected.
If I feel somebody bump into me on the times that I leave the house, I get really stressed, I get really scared too.
For both these women, life as we ease out of lockdown has become much harder. Measures designed to keep us safe are having a negative impact on the lives of people with hearing and sight loss. For Aisha, it's a routine appointment she's dreading.
I'm quite nervous. Nurses, doctors, you know, they'll all be wearing masks and I won't be able to understand what they're saying.
Along with sign language, Aisha relies on lip reading and facial expressions to fully understand what's going on. But now the interpreter will also be wearing a mask.
I don't know what's happening and what they're saying. It takes quite a lot of your power away and your self-esteem, I think, knowing that you can't communicate with anybody.
Part of the nature of my eye condition is that I don't have any depth perception, and it's also difficult for me because I don't have any peripheral vision, so I'm really relying on other people being good at following the rules because I can't.
With a husband who is shielding, it's down to Holly to do the basics like shopping. But safety measures designed to keep us safe have made her world almost impossible to navigate.
There's nothing about being visually impaired that makes me more vulnerable medically to COVID, but the situation has made me more vulnerable.
Charities supporting people with sensory loss have seen a dramatic increase in calls to their helplines as we ease out of lockdown.
They're struggling with the face masks when using public transport and getting out and about. They kind of feel forgotten about. They're not understood by the public and the government. And we feel these people have been really disadvantaged with the easing of the lockdown.
Do you think disability has been thought of?
We're constantly learning and receiving advice. In face coverings, visors are being used across transport networks. We're investigating tactile signage as well. Importantly, equality and discrimination law has not changed in the pandemic. People have to be treated appropriately and equally.
Following pressure, the Department of Health and Social Care has said it's looking into the possibility of securing transparent face coverings, which would help Aisha. But 3 months into the pandemic, and with many reasonable adjustments yet to be made, many deaf and blind people fear they'll be the last to get out of lockdown. Nikki Fox, BBC News.
Finally, in international news, India has the world's 4th highest number of coronavirus cases with more than 400,000 infections and more than 13,000 deaths, despite a harsh lockdown that lasted for months. Frontline workers, however, have told the BBC that there has been underreporting on the deaths in the country and real numbers could be much higher, raising serious questions about the relatively lower mortality rate in India as reflected in official numbers. BBC has more on this report.
They're always on the go now. For decades, Jitendra Singh Shanti has been carrying the dead from hospitals to crematoriums in Delhi. But as India battles the coronavirus pandemic, he says they're witnessing an unprecedented situation. I've not seen such a scary period in my life. We used to transport about 5 bodies a day for cremation. But now that's increased to 25. The situation in Delhi is really bad, he says. From the country's graveyards, crematoriums and hospitals, there are accounts that the real number of people who've died of coronavirus is higher than official data. Frontline doctors from different parts of India have told the BBC there are many who are not being counted. They didn't want to be identified, fearing reprisal from the government.
There is a massive underreporting in Delhi. In our isolation ward, 45 people have died in the past 3 weeks, out of which only 7 were tested. We don't know if they had COVID or not, but they definitely showed the symptoms.
The deaths are happening because of coronavirus, but they show the patients died of comorbidities like hypertension or diabetes. The number of deaths is more than what they are showing.
We do not test those who are brought in dead, even if they have COVID-like symptoms. Every day, at least around 6 to 7 patients are brought dead to our hospital.
There's also evidence of the underreporting. A man who tested positive for COVID-19 in Mumbai was not declared as infected by the virus when he died the next day. The hospital certificate says he died of respiratory failure, says his son, who didn't want to be named. They're not alone. This week, Mumbai and Delhi have added hundreds of previously unreported deaths to their data. But even so, it's mainly those who die in hospitals who are counted in official COVID numbers.
In India, more than half of all deaths in urban areas don't take place in hospitals. They occur at home. In rural parts, that proportion is even higher. Many of these deaths are recorded with local authorities, but even during normal times, there are long delays, which are likely to be worse in the midst of a pandemic.
There's 2 ways to look at it.
I asked an expert who studied the reporting of deaths in India what he thought of the official numbers.
So how many deaths are occurring in India is probably vastly underestimated. So if you look, for example, at the Million Death Study results on how many pneumonia deaths in adults occurred, and if we just relied on the records from the urban reporting areas, there was about a 3 to 4-fold underestimation. And we think that for COVID, it's at least that.
In a vast country with many layers of government, the true scale of the toll that coronavirus is taking in India might never be known. Yogita Lamai, BBC News, Mumbai.
That story wraps up this edition of the Kopala TV Main News, but before we go, we'll take a look at the headlines. People with disabilities feel neglected during the COVID-19. CBU lecturers pledge not to go back to work. Government sets to issue 8 billion COVID-19 bond for economic stimulus. And Malawi set for landmark presidential return.
Thank you.